The cargo ship Wandering Hope drifted through the emptiness of space. Inside its metal walls, 300 human workers sat in silence. They were miners. They were builders. They were the hands that built the great stations of the Galactic Council, and they were tired. Captain stood at the front of the cargo hold. She looked at her people. Their faces were thin. Their clothes were old and torn. Many had scars from accidents in the mines. The Council species did not care about human safety. Humans were cheap labor, nothing more. "We arrive at station in 6 hours," said. Her voice was steady, but there was anger beneath it. "The inspectors will check us again. You know the rules. Keep your heads down. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look them in the eyes." A young man named Thomas stood up. He was barely 20 years old. His hands were rough from years of work in the crystal mines of Deneb 4. "Why?" Thomas asked. "Why do we keep accepting this? My father died in those mines." The supervisor laughed when it happened. He said humans breed fast anyway. The cargo hold went quiet. Everyone knew stories like this. Everyone had lost someone. Walked toward Thomas. She put her hand on his shoulder. "I know, son, I know, but we are not ready, not yet." "When will we be ready?" Thomas demanded. "They treat us like animals, worse than animals. At least they feed their pets properly." Did not answer. She could not answer, because she asked herself the same question every single day. The Galactic Council had found Earth 50 years ago. Humans had just developed faster than light travel. They were excited. They dreamed of friendship with alien races. They dreamed of sharing knowledge and culture. They dreamed of a universe full of wonder and peace. The reality was very different. The Council was made of 12 species. They were tall and thin with silver skin. They controlled most of the banking and trade. There were massive creatures with 4 arms and thick hide. They ran the military. They were small and clever with large black eyes. They managed technology and science. And then there were the others, the, and more. Each species had its place in the Council hierarchy. Each species looked down on those below them. Humans were at the very bottom. When the Council ships first arrived at Earth, the aliens were shocked. Earth was a death world. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too violent. The animals were too dangerous. The diseases were too many. How could any intelligent life survive on such a terrible planet? But humans had survived, more than survived. They had built cities and nations. They had created art and music. They had split the atom and touched their moon. The Council did not care. To them, humans were freaks of nature, tough and strong, yes, but stupid and primitive, good for labor, good for nothing else. At first, humans tried diplomacy. They sent their best ambassadors. They offered friendship and trade. The Council laughed at them. The High Minister called human culture the confused noise of animals trying to imitate civilization. Trade agreements were signed, but they were traps. Humans gave their labor and resources. In return, they received almost nothing. Earth's governments protested. The Council ignored them. When protests grew louder, the Council sent warships to orbit Earth as a reminder. The message was clear: stay in your place or be destroyed. Many humans left Earth to find work in Council space. There were no jobs at home. The Council had taken control of Earth's economy. Factories closed, farms failed, people starved. Working for the aliens was the only way to feed their families. So millions of humans spread across the galaxy. They worked in mines on frozen worlds. They built stations in the void between stars. They cleaned the homes of wealthy aliens. They did every job that was too dangerous or too dirty for Council species. And they were treated like garbage. On the planet Prime, humans were not allowed to walk on the same streets as citizens. On stations, human workers had to wear collars that tracked their movements. On research facilities, humans were sometimes used for medical experiments without their consent. Laws existed to protect Council citizens from harm. Those laws did not apply to humans. Captain had seen all of this. She had watched friends die in accidents that could have been prevented. She had seen families torn apart when parents were sent to different work camps. She had held crying children who would never see their mothers again. And she had kept silent because speaking up meant death, because Earth was held hostage, because there was no hope. Or so she had believed. 6 months ago, everything changed. A message had reached her through secret channels, a message from Earth, a message from Admiral James of the United Earth Defense Force. The message was simple: the time is coming, be ready. Had not believed it at first. The UEDF was a joke, a small fleet of outdated ships that the Council allowed Earth to keep for local defense. They could never challenge the might of the Armada. But then more messages came, and with them came information that made its heart beat faster. For 30 years, Earth had been secretly building. Deep beneath the surface, in hidden facilities, humans had constructed a real fleet. Not the rusty patrol boats that the Council inspected every year. A true battle fleet. Thousands of ships, advanced weapons, technology that humans had developed in secret, technology that the Council knew nothing about. The Council believed humans were stupid. They did not monitor human scientists too closely. They did not think humans could innovate. They were wrong. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned. They had improved. And they had created weapons that would make the tremble. Did not know all the details. Only a few people did. But she knew that something big was coming. And she knew that when it happened, she would need to protect her people. The Wandering Hope entered the space around station. The station was enormous. It hung in space like a metal flower, its many arms stretching out in all directions. Thousands of ships moved around it. Trade ships, military ships, luxury cruisers carrying wealthy aliens on vacations. And cargo ships like the Wandering Hope, carrying human workers to their next assignment. "Attention, human vessel," a voice came through the communication system. It was a voice, cold and dismissive. "You will dock at Bay 47. Your cargo will be inspected before release. Any resistance will result in immediate termination." Press the response button. "Understood, station control, we comply." She hated those words. She had said them 1,000 times. Every time they tasted like poison in her mouth. The ship docked. The cargo bay doors opened. Inspectors walked in. They wore clean white uniforms. Their silver faces showed no emotion. Behind them came guards with massive plasma rifles. The lead inspector was named. Knew him. He had inspected her ships many times before. He enjoyed making humans uncomfortable. "Captain," said. He pronounced her name wrong on purpose. "Another load of workers. Let us see what quality of meat you bring this time." Stood still. Her fists clenched at her sides, but she kept her face calm. Walked among the human workers. He looked at them like a farmer looking at cattle. He poked one man in the chest. He grabbed a woman's face and turned it side to side. He laughed when a child started crying. "This one is too small," said, pointing at an old man. "He will not last a week in the mines. Why do you waste our time with such garbage?" "He is a skilled technician," said. "He can repair equipment that—" "Did I ask you to speak?" turned sharply. His eyes were cold. "You humans never learn your place, always talking, always complaining. You should be grateful we allow you to serve the Council at all." Lowered her head. "Forgive me, Inspector." Smiled. It was an ugly smile. "Better. Now we have reports that some human workers have been talking about unrest, spreading dangerous ideas. You would not know anything about that, would you, Captain?" His heart stopped for a moment. Did they know? Had the secret been discovered? "No, Inspector," she said. "My workers are loyal and obedient." Stared at her for a long moment. Then he waved his hand dismissively. "Of course they are. Humans do not have the intelligence for rebellion. You are workers, tools. You do what you are told." He turned and walked toward the exit. Unload the workers. They report to Mining Sector 7 in the morning. Anyone who is late will be punished." The inspectors left. The guards followed, let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Thomas approached her. "How long?" he whispered. "How long do we keep pretending?" Looked at him. Then she looked at all the workers watching her. They had heard the rumors too. They knew something was happening. They were waiting for a sign. "Soon," whispered back, "very soon." That night sat alone in her small cabin. The walls were thin metal. The bed was hard. A single light flickered above her head. This was luxury compared to how most human workers lived. She pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple data pad, but hidden inside was a quantum communication system, undetectable, untraceable. Human engineers had designed it in secret. She typed a message. "Arrived, workers in position, awaiting orders." The reply came within minutes. "Operation Dawn confirmed. 72 hours. All assets prepare for Phase 1. The Admiral sends his regards. Earth remembers." Read the message 3 times, then she deleted it. 72 hours. In 72 hours everything would change. She thought about her father. He had been a diplomat. He was part of the first team sent to negotiate with the Council. He had believed in peace. He had believed that humans and aliens could live together as equals. The Council had used him. They had made him sign treaties that enslaved his own people. When he finally understood what he had done, he took his own life. Was 15 years old. She had joined the merchant fleet to escape Earth. She thought she could forget, but she could not forget. Every day she saw what her people suffered. Every day the anger grew inside her. Now that anger would have a purpose. On Earth, in a bunker 2 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral James stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different part of the secret fleet. Ships by the thousands. Fighters by the tens of thousands. Weapons that would burn cities and crack moons. He was an old man now. His hair was white. His face was lined with age. But his eyes were sharp and his mind was clear. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "Admiral," a young officer said, "all fleet commanders report ready. Hidden bases across Council space are on standby. The signal can be sent at your command." Nodded slowly. "What about civilian evacuation?" "In progress, sir. We cannot save everyone, but we have moved most of the critical population to the shelter zones. The shield generators are ready. The Council will try to destroy Earth when they realize what is happening." "Yes, sir, but our orbital defenses should hold long enough for the main fleet to engage. They will have to fight us, not burn our world." Turned to face his officers. There were dozens of them, men and women who had given their lives to this cause. Many of them had lost family to Council cruelty. All of them had been waiting for this day. "I want to be clear about something," said. "Once we begin, there is no going back. We will be at war with the entire Galactic Council. They have more ships than us, more resources, more experience. Many of us will die, perhaps most of us." He paused. The room was silent. "But I ask you this, what life do we have now? We are slaves. Our children are slaves. Our will be slaves. We work until we die and then our bodies are thrown away like trash. The Council does not see us as people. They never will." He raised his hand and pointed at the screens. "This fleet is our future, our only future. We fight for every human who has suffered under Council rule. We fight for every child who has been separated from their parents. We fight for every worker who has died in mines and factories while their alien masters laughed. We fight because we have no other choice, because we are humans, because we refuse to be broken." The officers stood. Their eyes burned with determination. "In 72 hours we send the signal," continued. "In 72 hours we show the galaxy what humans really are, not weak, not stupid, not cattle to be used and discarded. We are survivors. We are warriors. and we are done being treated like dirt beneath alien feet." He turned back to the screens. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "Prepare the fleet to go to war." Across the galaxy, in hidden places and secret bases, humans received the message. Workers in mines stopped their labor for just a moment, feeling something change in the air. Engineers on space stations checked hidden weapon caches. Pilots in cargo ships reviewed their secret orders. For 50 years, humanity had bowed. For 50 years, humanity had suffered. For 50 years, humanity had waited. The waiting was almost over. On station looked out her small window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the fleet was gathering. Somewhere out there, her people were preparing to fight. She thought about Thomas and the other workers. In 72 hours, they would not be cargo anymore. They would not be laborers or servants or slaves. They would be soldiers in a war for freedom. She did not know if they would win. She did not know if she would survive. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They had looked at humans and seen only weak and primitive creatures. They had treated humans with cruelty and contempt for 50 years. They had pushed and pushed and pushed, never imagining that humans might push back. They were about to learn the truth about. Smiled in the darkness. It was not a kind smile. 72 hours, she whispered, and then we show them what we really are. The stars continued to burn in the endless black of space. They did not know that everything was about to change. They did not know that war was coming. But soon the entire galaxy would know. Soon the would rise. The signal went out at exactly midnight Earth time. It was a simple message, just 3 words: Operation Dawn begins. But those 3 words changed everything. In the bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral James watched the screens as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Green lights appeared one after another. Each light represented a hidden base awakening. Each light represented ships powering up. Each light represented humans preparing for battle. "Sir, the Council monitoring stations are detecting unusual activity," an officer reported. "They are confused. They do not understand what they are seeing." Nodded. "How long before they realize?" "Unknown, sir. Minutes, perhaps. They have never seen anything like this." Allowed himself a small smile. "No, they have not." On station, received the signal on her hidden communication device. Her hands shook slightly as she read the words. This was it. The moment she had dreamed about for 20 years. She stood up and walked to the cargo bay where the human workers were sleeping. 300 people in rows of hard metal bunks. Tomorrow they were supposed to report to the mines. Tomorrow they were supposed to begin another cycle of endless labor. There would be no tomorrow, not that kind of tomorrow. "Everyone wake up," called out. Her voice was different now, stronger, commanding, "Wake up now." The workers stirred. They looked at her with confused eyes. Thomas was the first to understand. He saw something in her face that he had never seen before. Hope. "It is time?" Thomas asked. Nodded. "It is time." The cargo bay erupted in whispers. People helped each other up. Parents held their children. Old men and women stood than they had in years. They had all been waiting for this. They all knew. "Listen carefully," said. "In less than 1 hour, human forces will attack this station. When that happens, everything will change. You are no longer workers. You are no longer cargo. You are soldiers of the United Earth Defense Force, and our mission is to take control of station." A woman raised her hand. "But we have no weapons. How can we fight?" Smiled. "Follow me." She led them to a storage compartment at the back of the ship. A compartment that the inspectors had never thought to search carefully. A compartment filled with crates marked medical supplies. Opened the first crate. Inside were plasma rifles, hundreds of them, compact, powerful, and designed specifically for human hands. "We have been preparing for this moment for a long time," said. Every cargo ship in the human merchant fleet carries hidden weapons. Every human station has secret storage rooms. Every human colony has underground bunkers full of equipment. Thomas picked up a rifle. It felt good in his hands. It felt right. The Council thinks we are helpless, continued. They think we have nothing. They are wrong. For 30 years we have been smuggling weapons across the galaxy. For 30 years we have been training in secret. For 30 years we have been waiting for this night. She picked up her own weapon. Now we stop waiting, now we fight. The station alarms began to wail. Somewhere in the distance, explosions rocked the metal walls. The lights flickered. The floor shook beneath their feet. The fleet has arrived, said. Move out. Team Alpha with me to the control center. Team Beta secures the docking bays. Team Gamma protects the civilians. Go. The human workers moved with speed and purpose. They were not trained soldiers, but they had lived hard lives. They had faced death many times in the mines and factories. They were not afraid. Led her team through the corridors of the station. Citizens ran past them in panic. They did not even look at the humans. To them, humans were invisible, just part of the background, just workers. That was their mistake. The team reached the control center. 2 guards stood at the door. They were massive creatures, twice the size of a human. Their 4 arms held heavy weapons. Their thick hide could stop most projectiles. But human engineers had designed weapons specifically to deal with. Raised her rifle. The plasma bolt hit the first guard in the face, burning through tissue and bone. The second guard turned to fire, but Thomas and 3 others shot him before he could pull the trigger. Move, ordered. They burst through the doors into the control center. Inside, a dozen technicians screamed in terror. They had never seen humans with weapons. They had never imagined it was possible. Everyone on the floor shouted, "Now!" The technicians dropped. Some cried. Some begged for mercy, ignored them. She walked to the main console and began entering commands. "What are you doing?" a technician whimpered. "You cannot access our systems. Humans do not have the knowledge." Laughed, it was a bitter sound. "You really believe that, do you? You think we are too stupid to understand your technology. We have been studying your systems for decades. We know everything about this station. We know its weaknesses. We know how to control it." She pressed a final button. The main screen lit up with a new image. The United Earth Defense Force symbol. A blue and green planet surrounded by stars. "Station is now under human control," announced. Her voice broadcast across every speaker in the station. "All Council personnel will surrender immediately. Anyone who resists will be treated as an enemy combatant. This is not a negotiation." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of stations and colonies. Human workers who had been abused for decades suddenly produced weapons from hidden places. Human merchant ships revealed hidden armor and weapons. Human communities rose up against their oppressors. The Council was caught completely by surprise. On Prime, the capital of the civilization, High Minister received the reports with disbelief. His silver face twisted in confusion as he read the information. "This cannot be correct," he said to his advisors. "Humans are attacking Council installations. That is impossible. Humans do not have weapons. Humans do not have organization. Humans are primitives." "The reports are confirmed, High Minister," an advisor said nervously. "Human forces have taken control of Station Bellows, the mining colonies of Deneb Sector, and at least 40 other locations. We are receiving distress calls from across the quadrant." "Send the fleet to crush them," ordered. "This rebellion will end within hours." But the fleet was already busy. In the space near Earth, the main human battle fleet emerged from hiding. Thousands of ships appeared seemingly from nowhere. They had been concealed in asteroid fields, hidden in the shadows of gas giants, waiting in the darkness between stars. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution. She was a beautiful ship, sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that the Council had never seen before. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his first officer said. "The defensive fleet is moving to intercept." Studied the tactical display. The ships were indeed impressive. Massive warships bristling with weapons, the finest military force in the galaxy. They had conquered 100 species. They had never lost a war. They had also never fought humans. "Signal the fleet," ordered. "Standard attack formation. Target their command ships first. Let us show these aliens what can do." The two fleets met in the space between Earth and Mars. It was the largest naval battle in galactic history. Thousands of ships on each side, millions of warriors. The outcome would decide the future of human civilization. They attacked with their usual strategy: overwhelming force, direct assault, crush the enemy with superior firepower. It had always worked before. This time it did not work. Human ships were smaller than warships, but they were faster and more agile. Human weapons were strange and terrible. Plasma cannons that burned through shields, missiles that could change direction in mid-flight, electronic warfare systems that confused sensors. And the humans fought like no species they had ever encountered. Council species were careful in battle. They protected their ships. They retreated when damaged. They valued survival above victory. Humans did not care about survival. Damaged ships did not retreat. They flew directly at enemy vessels and exploded, taking warships with them. Pilots whose weapons failed used their fighters as missiles. Soldiers boarded enemy ships through hull breaches and fought hand to hand, even knowing they would die. They did not understand. Why would anyone fight like this? Why would anyone accept certain death? They did not understand because they had never truly suffered. They had never been pushed to the edge of despair. They had never lost everything and had nothing left to lose. Humans had. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride, watching in horror as his fleet was torn apart. His warships were burning. His fighters were dying. His soldiers were being slaughtered. "This is not possible," growled. "They are only humans. They are weak and primitive." "They are not fighting like weak primitives, Commander," his tactical officer replied. "They are fighting like cornered animals. They have nothing to lose." "Everyone has something to lose." "Not them, Commander. We took everything from them: their freedom, their dignity, their hope. They have nothing left except their anger, and that anger is terrible." Watched another of his ships explode. A human fighter had flown directly into its engine core. The pilot had sacrificed himself to destroy a vessel worth 100 times his ship. "Fall back," ordered. "Signal the reserve fleet. We need reinforcements." "Sir, the reserve fleet is under attack by human forces at station. They cannot assist." Felt something he had never felt before in battle: fear. On the ground, human uprisings spread across Council space. Workers in mines and factories stopped their labor and turned on their masters. Servants in alien homes revealed hidden weapons. Human communities that had seemed passive and obedient suddenly became organized resistance movements. The Council could not understand how this was possible. How could humans, scattered across 1,000 worlds, coordinate such a massive rebellion? How could they communicate without detection? How could they have hidden so many weapons and soldiers? They did not realize that humans had learned to be patient. They had learned to plan. They had learned to hide their true strength behind masks of submission. For 50 years, humans had pretended to be weak and stupid. For 50 years, they had let the Council believe they were broken. For 50 years, they had prepared for this moment. Now the masks were off. On station, stood on the observation deck and watched the battle raging in space. Human and Council ships clashed in brilliant explosions of light. Smaller human vessels darted between massive warships, striking and retreating, striking and retreating. Thomas stood beside her. His face was covered in soot from fighting. His hand still gripped his plasma rifle. "Are we winning?" he asked. Considered the question. "We are surviving. For now, that is enough." What happens next? Even if we win this battle, the Council has millions of ships, billions of soldiers. We cannot defeat them all. No, we cannot, but we can hurt them. We can make them bleed. We can show them that humans are not cattle to be used and discarded. We can make them respect us. She turned to face Thomas. "And we can give other species hope. There are others who suffer under Council rule, other races who are treated like we are treated. When they see humans fighting back, maybe they will fight too. Maybe this is just the beginning of something larger." Thomas nodded slowly. "My father would have liked that idea. He always said humans were supposed to be liberators, not slaves." He was right, and now we honor his memory by fighting for what he believed in. An explosion lit up the space outside. A battleship broke apart, its hull cracked by human weapons. Escape pods launched from the dying vessel, carrying survivors to safety. Human ships did not fire on the pods. "Why do we let them escape?" Thomas asked. "They would not do the same for us." "Because we are not them," replied. "We fight because we must, but we do not become monsters in the process. We remember our humanity even in war. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us better." The battle continued through the night. Both sides took heavy losses, but as the hours passed, it became clear that they were losing. Their rigid tactics could not adapt to human unpredictability. Their soldiers could not match human determination. Their commanders could not understand human willingness to sacrifice. By morning, the fleet was retreating. Battered and burning, the surviving ships fled toward the outer planets, leaving Earth's orbit in human hands. Admiral watched them go. His flagship had taken damage. Many of his officers were dead. He himself had a wound on his forehead that still bled despite the medical treatment. But he was smiling. "Signal all fleet commanders," he said. "Phase 1 is complete. Earth is secure. Begin Phase 2 operations." His first officer looked at him with exhausted eyes. "Sir, what is Phase 2? Turned to face her. The blood on his face made him look savage, primal human. "Phase 2 is liberation," he said. "Every human colony, every human work camp, every place where our people have suffered, we are going to free them all. And then," he paused, looking out at the stars, "and then we are going to make the Council answer for everything they have done to us." "Sir, that could take years, decades." "I know, but we have waited 50 years for this moment. We can be patient a little longer, and when we are finished, the galaxy will never look at humans the same way again." Across Council space, the message spread. Humans had fought back. Humans had won their first battle. Humans were no longer slaves. For the first time in 50 years, there was hope. In hidden places and secret rooms, humans who had been afraid now stood a little taller. Workers who had been beaten down now looked at their masters with different eyes. Children who had been told they were worthless now dreamed of freedom. The war had only begun. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, more death. The road ahead would be long and hard and bloody. But for the first time, humans believed they could walk that road. For the first time, believed they could win. And that belief changed everything. 3 months had passed since the first battle, 3 months of war, 3 months of blood and fire and death. Admiral James stood on the bridge of the Retribution as it entered orbit around the planet 4. Below him, the surface burned. Smoke rose from 100 cities. The garrison had fought hard, but in the end they had fallen. "Surface teams report complete liberation," his communications officer announced. 40,000 human workers freed from the mining camps. Enemy casualties estimated at 12,000. Our casualties, 437. Nodded slowly. The numbers were better than he had expected. But 437 dead humans was still 437 families destroyed. 437 mothers who would never see their children again. War had a terrible cost. Begin evacuation protocols, ordered. Get our people off that planet and onto transport ships. We move to the next target in 6 hours. The human fleet had been moving non-stop since the Battle of Earth. They struck fast and hard, liberating human colonies and work camps across Council space. They never stayed in one place too long. They knew the Council was gathering its forces for a major counterattack. But the Council was having problems of its own. On Prime, High Minister faced a Council chamber in chaos. Representatives from all 12 member species shouted at each other. Blame flew in every direction. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was beginning to crack. This disaster is the fault of the ambassador screamed, his large black eyes blazing with anger. Your warriors were supposed to be invincible, yet they were defeated by humans, animals in primitive ships. Fleet Commander slammed his 4 fists on the table. My warriors fought with honor. The humans used tactics we have never seen before. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They attack without fear. They are not like any enemy we have faced. Excuses, the delegate hissed. Perhaps they have grown soft from centuries of easy conquest. Turned toward the murder in his eyes. Say that again, you pathetic creature. Say it and see what happens. Enough, raised his hands for silence. The chamber slowly quieted. Fighting among ourselves helps only the humans. We must unite against this threat. What threat? The representative asked. His voice was calm and cold. There were the merchants of the Council caring only about profit. The humans have taken a few minor colonies. Their fleet is small. Their resources are limited. They cannot sustain this war. You underestimate them, growled. I have fought them. I have watched them die laughing. They were born in hell and raised in fire. They do not think like us. They do not fear like us. Then what do you suggest, Commander? Asked. Was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. I suggest we negotiate. The chamber erupted in shock and outrage. Negotiate with humans. Have you lost your mind? They are slaves, not equals. Waited for the noise to die down. I do not suggest negotiation because I want to. I suggest it because the alternative is worse. If we continue this war, we will eventually destroy the humans, but the cost will be enormous. Billions of Council citizens will die. Our economy will collapse, and worst of all. He paused, looking around the chamber. Other species are watching, the ones we have conquered, the ones we have oppressed. They see humans fighting back. They see humans winning. If this war continues, they may decide to fight too, and then we face not one rebellion but 100. The chamber was silent. Everyone understood what was saying. The Council had conquered many species over the centuries. Most of them had accepted their fate, but if they saw that rebellion was possible. We will not negotiate, said firmly. To negotiate would be to admit that humans are our equals. That is not acceptable. The very foundation of Council society depends on human inferiority. If we accept them as equals, everything we have built will crumble. Then we must crush them completely, the commander said. Not just defeat them, destroy them. Every human ship, every human colony, every human life. We must make an example so terrible that no other species will ever dream of rebellion. Nodded slowly. Agreed. Commander, you will assemble the combined fleet, every warship from every Council species. We will end this war with overwhelming force. Bowed his head. It will be done, High Minister, but I warn you, what is coming will not be easy. The humans will not surrender. They would rather die than return to slavery. We must be prepared to kill every single one of them. Then that is what we will do, said coldly. The humans chose war. Now they will face extinction. On the other side of the galaxy was having her own problems. She had been promoted to general after the Battle of Now she commanded human ground forces across a dozen sectors. It was a heavy responsibility, and it grew heavier every day. "The supply situation is critical," her logistics officer reported. "We are running low on ammunition, medical supplies, and food. Our supply lines are stretched too thin." Studied the map on her screen. Human forces were spread across a vast area of space. They had liberated hundreds of colonies and freed millions of workers, but each liberation required resources. Each freed human needed to be evacuated or protected. "What about the hidden caches?" asked. "The supplies we stored before the war." "Almost exhausted, General. We planned for a 6-month campaign. It has been 3 months and we have used almost everything." Rubbed her tired eyes. She had not slept properly in weeks. None of them had. War did not allow for rest. "We need to change strategy," she said finally. "We cannot keep spreading ourselves thinner. We need to consolidate our forces, defend what we have taken. Let the Council come to us." "That gives up the initiative, General." "I know, but we have no choice. If we keep attacking, we will run out of supplies and soldiers. Better to dig in and make them pay for every inch of ground." Thomas stood in the corner of the room, listening. He had become one of his trusted aides. The young man who had asked why on the cargo ship had become a skilled fighter and a capable leader. "General," Thomas said, "there may be another option." Looked at him speak. "The other species, the ones the Council has conquered, we have made contact with some of them. Though they hate the Council as much as we do, if we could convince them to join us." "An alliance," said thoughtfully, "other species fighting alongside humans." "The Council rules through fear and division. They keep each species separate, focused on their own problems. But if we could unite them against a common enemy." Shook her head slowly. "It is a good idea, Thomas, but the other species do not trust us. To them, we are just another Council race. They do not know that we have suffered as they have." "Then we show them," Thomas said. "We share our stories. We prove that we are allies, not masters. We offer them something the Council never has: true partnership." Considered this. It was risky. The other conquered species might refuse to help. They might even betray humans to the Council in exchange for better treatment. But Thomas was right. Humans alone could not defeat the combined might of the Council. They needed allies. "Contact the representative," ordered. "Arrange a meeting. We will see if your idea has merit." The meeting took place on a neutral space station in the Outer Rim. Went in person, despite the danger. Some things could not be done through messages. There were strange creatures. They had 6 legs and crystalline skin that changed color based on their emotions. The Council had conquered them 300 years ago. They had been workers and servants ever since, much like humans. The representative was named. She studied with multifaceted eyes that showed no emotion. "Why should we help humans?" asked. Her translator device made her voice sound flat and mechanical. "Your species is new to suffering. They have endured for centuries. What do you know of our pain?" Did not answer immediately. She had prepared a speech, full of words about freedom and cooperation, but looking at, she realized that words would not be enough. Instead, she rolled up her sleeve. Scars covered her arm, burns from factory accidents, cuts from mining equipment, marks from punishment she had received for minor infractions. "I know pain," said simply. "Every human knows pain. We have lost friends and family to Council cruelty. We have watched our children taken from us to work in mines until they died. We have been told that we are worthless, that we are animals, that we deserve nothing better than slavery." She lowered her sleeve. "I am not here to compare suffering. Your pain is your own. Our pain is our own. But I believe we share something: the desire to be free, the desire to be treated with dignity, the desire to determine our own futures." Was silent for a long moment. Her crystalline skin shifted through several colors that could not interpret. They have tried rebellion before, said finally. 3 times in our history, each time we were crushed. Millions of our people were killed. The survivors were punished for generations. Humans faced the same threat, replied. But we chose to fight anyway, because slavery is not living, because our children deserve better, because some things are worth dying for. And if you lose, if the Council destroys you completely, then at least we died fighting. At least we showed the galaxy that it is possible to resist. At least we gave hope to others. Studied for another long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She extended one of her crystal legs and touched his arm. In culture, this was a gesture of deep respect. "The will consider your proposal," said. "We will speak with thee and we will share your words with them, and we will watch. If humans continue to fight, if humans prove they are worthy allies, perhaps we will join you." "That is all I ask," said. "Watch us. See that we are not like the Council. See that we fight for something greater than conquest." The meeting ended. Returned to her ship with mixed feelings. She had not secured an alliance, but she had opened a door. Now humans would have to prove themselves through actions. Meanwhile, the Council was gathering its forces. Across Council space, warships assembled into the largest fleet ever created. Battleships, cruisers, science vessels converted for war, ships from every member species united for the first time in centuries. Fleet Commander commanded this massive armada. Over 50,000 warships, millions of soldiers, enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. He stood on the command deck of his new flagship, the Vengeance, and watched the fleet form up around him. It was an impressive sight, the combined might of a galactic civilization. But did not feel confident. He had fought the humans at Earth. He had seen what they could do. He had watched his warriors die by the thousands against an enemy that should have been easy prey. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the human fleet has been detected in the sector, approximately 3,000 ships." Studied the tactical display, 3,000 ships against 50,000. The math was simple. The humans would be destroyed. So why did he feel so uneasy? "Set course for sector," ordered. "All ships to combat readiness. We end this war today." The greatest battle of the war was about to begin. On board the Retribution, Admiral received word of the approaching Council fleet. He stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display with calm eyes. 50,000 ships, sir," his first officer said. Her voice trembled slightly. "We cannot win against those numbers." "No," agreed. "We cannot win a straight fight, so we will not fight straight." He turned to face his crew. They were tired. They were scared. They had been fighting for 3 months with barely any rest, and now they faced the largest fleet in galactic history. But they were human, and humans did not give up. "All ships prepare for Operation Last Stand," ordered. "Signal our forces at the trap is set. Now we spring it." His first officer looked confused. "Sir, what trap?" Smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. "The Council thinks they know humans. They think we are desperate and cornered. They think we will try to run or surrender. They are wrong." He pointed at the tactical display. "We have spent 3 months liberating colonies and freeing workers, but we have also been preparing. Every system we have taken, we have fortified. Every planet, every asteroid, every moon, weapons platforms, minefields, hidden fighter bases." His smile widened. "Sector is not where we make our last stand. It is where we make theirs. They are walking into a kill zone of our design. And when they are committed, when they cannot retreat, we will show them what can really do." The bridge was silent. Then slowly the crew began to understand. They began to smile too. They were outnumbered. They were, by every measure, they should lose. But they were human, and humans had a way of defying the odds. The final battle of the first phase of the war was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Council fleet entered sector in perfect formation. 50,000 ships arranged in the classic battle pattern. Warships in the center, support vessels in the rear, fighters screening the flanks. It was a display of overwhelming power, meant to crush any resistance. Fleet commander stood on his command deck and watched the human fleet ahead, 3,000 ships. They seemed so small against his armada, so vulnerable. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "the humans are not retreating. They are holding position near the asteroid belt." Frowned, "They should be running. They cannot hope to fight us with those numbers. Perhaps they are preparing to surrender." "Humans do not surrender. I have learned that lesson." Studied the display carefully. Something felt wrong. The humans were too calm, too organized. They were not acting like a desperate enemy about to be destroyed. But what choice did he have? The Council had given him orders: destroy the human fleet, end the rebellion, restore order to the galaxy. "All ships advance," ordered, "weapons free when in range." The Council armada moved forward. Thousands upon thousands of warships, their weapons charging, their shields at maximum. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled in galactic history. The humans waited. On board the Retribution, Admiral watched the Council fleet approach. His hands were steady. His voice was calm. He had been preparing for this moment for decades. "Sir, they are entering the asteroid belt," his first officer reported. "I see them. Status on the hidden platforms." "All platforms report ready. Fighters are in position. Ground batteries on 4 are armed." Nodded. "Signal all ships. Operation Last Stand begins in 3, 2, 1, execute." The asteroid belt came alive. From behind every rock, from inside every crater, from beneath every shadow, human weapons opened fire. Thousands of hidden missile platforms launched their payloads. Automated gun turrets targeted Council ships. Mines that had been placed weeks ago suddenly activated. The leading edge of the Council fleet flew directly into a wall of fire. Watched in horror as his forward ships began to explode. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The neat formation collapsed into chaos as vessels tried to avoid the deadly barrage. "Trap!" roared. "It is a trap! All ships, emergency evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. The Council fleet was already deep in the asteroid belt. Ships crashed into rocks trying to dodge missiles. Vessels caught in minefields were torn apart. The careful formation that had been their strength became a prison. And then the human fleet attacked. 3,000 ships was not many against 50,000. But 3,000 ships attacking a confused and panicking enemy was something different. Human vessels darted through the chaos, striking at vulnerable targets, then disappearing into the asteroids before the Council ships could respond. "We are losing coherence," the tactical officer shouted. "Squadron commanders are not responding. Communication is being jammed." Slammed his fists against the command console. "Get me communication with Fleet 7. Fleet 7 is our reserve. They are still outside the belt." "I am trying, Commander. Something is blocking our signals." On 4, commanded the ground operations. Massive ground-based weapons had been hidden in the planet's canyons and caves. Now they fired upward, adding their strength to the assault. "Target the command ships," ordered. "Take out their coordination. Without leadership, they will fall apart." Thomas worked beside her, directing fire teams across the continent. "General, we are receiving reports from the civilian shelters. All non-combatants are secured." "Good. If this goes wrong, they need to be ready to evacuate." Watched the battle overhead. Explosions lit up the sky like a second sun. "But I do not think it will go wrong. Not today." In space, the Council fleet was dying. Had led the largest armada ever assembled, and it was being destroyed by a force 1/10 its size. But it was not just the human weapons that killed his ships. It was the confusion, the panic, the complete breakdown of command. Council species were used to fighting in organized formations. They relied on clear orders and strict hierarchy. When communication failed, when commanders could not reach their squadrons, the fleet became a collection of individual ships with no coordination. Humans thrived in chaos. They had trained for exactly this situation. Small groups of human ships operated independently, making decisions on the spot, adapting to changing circumstances. No central command was needed. Every captain knew the overall plan and adjusted their tactics as needed. "Commander, we are down to 30,000 ships," the tactical officer reported. "We must retreat." Looked at the battle around him. His flagship was still intact, protected by a wall of escort vessels, but those escorts were dying one by one. The human fleet was like a pack of predators, isolating and destroying council ships with terrible efficiency. "Sound the retreat," ordered. His voice was heavy with defeat. "All ships fall back to the sector boundary. We regroup and—" He stopped. Regroup for what? To try again. The humans would just prepare another trap. "Commander, enemy ships approaching from the rear." Spun around. On the tactical display, new contacts appeared behind the council fleet. Ships that were not human. Ships that bore unfamiliar markings. "Identify those vessels." "Sir, they appear to be and, sir, there are ships as well." Felt his blood run cold. The conquered species, the ones the council had oppressed for centuries, they were attacking. They had made their decision. When they saw the council fleet falling into the human trap, when they saw the mighty armada being torn apart by the species everyone called primitive and weak, they had known. They had contacted thee and the. They had gathered their hidden ships, vessels they had concealed for generations waiting for this moment. And they had joined the battle. 2,000 new ships attacked the council fleet from behind. It was not many, but it was enough. Caught between the human assault and the rebel attack, the council armada had nowhere to run. "This is Fleet Commander to all council vessels," broadcast. "I am ordering an immediate ceasefire. All ships stand down." Silence. Then, one by one, council ships began to power down their weapons. White flags of surrender appeared on tactical displays. The greatest fleet in galactic history had been defeated. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral watched the council ship surrender. His crew was cheering, embracing each other, crying with relief and joy. They had done it. Against impossible odds they had won. But did not celebrate. His eyes were on the tactical display, counting the destroyed ships. Human ships. 3,000 went into battle. Less than 2,000 remained. 1,000 human vessels destroyed. Tens of thousands of human lives lost. Good people who had given everything for this victory. "Signal Fleet Commander," said quietly. "Tell him I want to meet face to face. It is time to discuss terms." The meeting took place on a neutral station. Accompanied Admiral, along with a delegation that included human leaders and representatives of the and. Arrived with only 2 aides. His massive frame seemed smaller somehow. Defeat had taken something from him. The 2 leaders faced each other across a metal table. Human and slave and master, now equals. "You surprised us," said finally. "We did not believe humans capable of such strategy, such determination." "You never really looked at us," replied. "You saw what you wanted to see, animals, primitives, slaves. You never considered that we might be more." "No, we did not," was silent for a moment. "I have a question, Human Admiral. Why fight against such odds? You could have been destroyed, your entire species could have been wiped out. Why take that risk?" Leaned forward. "Because the alternative was worse. You do not understand what it is like to be treated as less than nothing. To watch your children grow up knowing they will always be slaves. To have no hope, no future, no chance of anything better. That is not living. That is just dying slowly." He sat back. "We chose to risk everything because we had nothing to lose. You gave us nothing, so we had nothing to fear. Absorbed this. And now, what do you want? The Council will not simply accept your terms. High Minister is already calling for a new fleet to be assembled. Let him try, spoke up. You have seen what we can do when cornered, and now we have allies. The others will join as well. Every species you have oppressed is watching. Every slave in the galaxy is dreaming of freedom. You would tear the Council apart. The Council tore itself apart, said. You built your empire on cruelty and exploitation. That foundation has cracks. We are simply exposing them. Looked at the rebel delegation. Humans side by side with an end. Species that had been enemies were now allies, united by their common experience of suffering. What are your terms? Asked. Pulled out a data pad. Full recognition of human sovereignty. No Council ships in human space. Release of all human prisoners and workers. Compensation for 50 years of exploitation. Equal representation in galactic affairs. The Council will never accept this. They have no choice. Their greatest fleet is destroyed. Their economy is crumbling. Their subject species are rising up. Continue the war and the Council will collapse completely. Accept our terms and perhaps something can be saved. Studied the data pad for a long time. I am only a military commander. I do not have authority to make peace. Then take our terms to those who do. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them that the age of human slavery is over. They can accept that reality, or they can watch their civilization burn. The commander stood. He bowed his head slightly too. It was a gesture of respect that no had ever shown a human before. I will deliver your message, said, but I warn you, is proud. He may choose destruction over surrender. Then that will be his choice, not ours. Left, the delegation watched him go. Do you think they will accept? Thomas asked. Shook his head. I do not know, but the war is not over either way. Even if the Council agrees to peace, there will be those who resist, those who cannot accept that humans are equals. We must remain strong. Nodded. The hardest battles may still be ahead, but we have proven something today. We have proven that can win, that slaves can become free, that the powerful can fall. She looked at the representative. His crystalline skin shone with colors of hope and determination. And we have proven something else, continued. We have proven that different species can work together, not as masters and servants but as partners. That is the future we are fighting for. A galaxy where every species is respected, where no one is property. Extended a crystal leg and touched his arm again. The will stand with humans, today and always. Similar pledges came from thee and representatives. A new alliance was forming, not the council of masters and slaves, but something different, something better. Admiral looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the council was deciding how to respond, war or peace, survival or destruction. But whatever they chose, one thing was certain. The galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer slaves. They were no longer property. They were warriors who had faced the mightiest empire in history and emerged victorious. They were. And the universe would never forget what they had done. On Prime, High Minister received report. He read the human terms with trembling hands. His silver face twisted with rage and fear. They dare, whispered. They dare demand equality with council species. They are animals, primitives. They should be grateful we allowed them to exist at all. His advisors exchanged nervous looks. Many of them remembered what had happened at. They had seen the recordings of council ships burning by the thousands. They had heard reports of and joining the humans. High Minister, one advisor said carefully, perhaps some compromise is possible. The humans have proven themselves formidable, and with the other species joining them. Silence, slammed his fist on the table. There will be no compromise. There will be no negotiation. We will build a new fleet. We will destroy every human in the galaxy. We will crush every rebel species and restore order. He stood and pointed at the window, beyond which the stars of Council space glittered. The Council has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not fall to a pack of savages. Prepare for total war. But even as gave his orders, even as new ships were commissioned and new soldiers recruited, the message of spread across the galaxy. Stories of human bravery, stories of Council defeat, stories of hope. In slave quarters and work camps, in mines and factories, oppressed beings of 100 species whispered to each other. Did you hear? The humans won. The Council fleet was destroyed. Freedom is possible. The fire that humans had started was spreading. And nothing in the universe could put it out. 1 year after the battle of the galaxy was a different place. High Minister had refused peace. He had ordered the construction of a new fleet. He had promised to crush the human rebellion and restore Council supremacy. He had sworn that no primitive species would ever threaten dominance again. He had failed. The war had continued, but not as had planned. New ships were built, but crews were harder to find. Warriors questioned orders for the first time in their history. Citizens began protesting in the streets. Scientists refused to work on weapons projects. And across Council space, more species joined the rebellion. They rose up, overwhelming their overseers with sheer numbers. They sabotaged Council factories from within. They refused to mine the crystals that powered Council technology. One by one, the pillars of Council power crumbled. Admiral James had not rested during this year. He had led the human fleet in a campaign across the stars, liberating colony after colony. His ships were joined by vessels from a dozen allied species. The small rebellion had become a galactic revolution. Now stood on the bridge of the retribution as it approached Prime itself, the heart of the Council, the capital of the empire that had enslaved humanity. "We are in visual range, Admiral," his first officer reported. Looked at the Prime was beautiful, a blue and silver world covered in gleaming cities and crystalline towers. They had built their civilization on the labor of 1,000 conquered species. Their wealth was stolen wealth. Their beauty was painted in blood. "How many Council ships in orbit?" asked. "Approximately 10,000, sir. Most are damaged from previous engagements. Many have skeleton crews. We estimate only 60% are fully operational." Nodded. The Allied fleet behind him numbered 15,000 ships. Humans and others. Species that had once been slaves now flew as warriors. "Open a channel to the Council," ordered. "It is time to end this." The flickered High Minister appeared. He looked old, tired. His silver skin had lost its shine. His eyes were hollow. "Human Admiral said, 'You come to attack this is an act of barbarism.'" "No, High Minister," replied calmly. "This is an act of liberation, just as you attacked Earth 50 years ago, just as you conquered and enslaved 100 species before us. We are simply returning what you gave. We brought civilization to primitive worlds. We brought order to chaos. You brought slavery. You brought suffering. You treated intelligent beings as property, and now you face the consequences." Leaned forward. "If you attack Prime, billions will die. Our civilians are innocent. They have done nothing to you." Felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "Innocent? Your civilians walked past human workers dying in the streets. They used our people as servants and treated us worse than animals. They built their comfortable lives on our broken backs." He paused. "But we are not like you. We do not kill civilians. We do not slaughter innocents. Surrender now and your people will be spared. Continue to resist and we will destroy your military forces, but we will not touch your cities unless we are forced to defend ourselves. You cannot ask me to surrender. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. We are the foundation of galactic civilization. That civilization was built on cruelty. It is time for something new." Was silent for a long moment. Around him, his advisors whispered urgently. Many of them wanted to surrender. The war was lost. Everyone knew it. Pride was all that remained. "I need time," said finally. "Time to consult with the other council species." "You have 1 hour. After that we attack." The screen went dark, turned to face his crew. They looked at him with trust and determination. They had come so far. They had lost so many friends. Now they stood at the gates of victory. "All ships prepare for battle," ordered. "But hold fire unless fired upon. We give them 1 hour. After that we end this." On the surface of Prime, panic was spreading. Citizens who had never known fear now ran through the streets. The servants they had relied upon for generations were gone, joined the rebellion, or simply disappeared. The comfortable world they had known was collapsing. In the council chamber faced the representatives of the other species. Many seats were empty. They had openly joined the rebels. They had declared neutrality and withdrawn their forces. Even the mighty warriors who had been the backbone of council military power were divided. Fleet Commander stood before the assembly. He had survived, had fought in a dozen more battles, and had watched his forces shrink with each engagement. Now he spoke the truth that everyone feared to hear. "We cannot win," said bluntly. "The humans and their allies outnumber us and outfight us. Our supplies are exhausted. Our soldiers are demoralized. Continuing this war will only lead to complete destruction." "Then we die with honor," a noble shouted. "We do not surrender to animals." "Honor?" Voice was cold. "There is no honor in senseless death. There is no honor in destroying our civilization for pride. The humans have offered terms. They have promised to spare our civilians. That is more mercy than we ever showed them." Raised his hand for silence. "What would you have us do, Commander? Accept human rule, become their servants as they were ours?" "The humans do not want servants, they want partners. They want a galaxy where all species are equal, where no one is enslaved," looked at with tired eyes. "I have fought them for a year. I have studied them. I have even spoken with some of them. They are not what we thought. They are primitives. They are survivors, dreamers, builders. Yes, they come from a harsh world, but that harshness made them strong. Not just physically strong, but mentally strong. They faced us with everything against them and they won. That is not the mark of primitives. That is the mark of a great people." The chamber was silent. Even the most arrogant nobles had nothing to say. Closed his eyes. For 50 years, he had believed in the superiority of council species. He had believed that humans were lesser beings, fit only for labor. He had believed that the order of the galaxy was just and right. He had been wrong. "Contact Admiral," said quietly. "Tell him we accept his terms." The surrender ceremony took place on station. The same station where had first led the uprising, now served as the site where the war officially ended. Admiral represented the Allied forces. With him stood Thomas and representatives from every species that had joined the rebellion. Across from them stood the council delegates, led by a subdued High Minister. This document recognizes the independence of all species formerly under council rule, a neutral arbiter announced. It establishes the Galactic Alliance as the successor to the Council. All member species will have equal representation and equal rights. No species may enslave or exploit another. Trade and cooperation will be based on mutual benefit. The delegates signed one by one. When it was done, a new era had begun. Later stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Thomas joined her. He was older now, hardened by war, but there was peace in his eyes. "We did it," Thomas said. "We actually did it." "We did," agreed, "though sometimes I still cannot believe it." "What happens now? The war is over, but there is so much work to do, so many worlds to rebuild, so many people to help." Nodded. "That is the challenge ahead. War is almost easy compared to peace. Destroying is simpler than building. Now we must prove that we can create a galaxy worth living in." Do you think we can?" Was silent for a moment. She thought about her father, who had believed in peace and cooperation. She thought about the workers on the Wandering Hope, who had dreamed of freedom. She thought about the millions who had died to make this moment possible. "I think we have to try," she said finally. "We fought for a better future. Now we must build it, not just for humans but for every species in the galaxy. A future where no one is treated as property, where every child has the chance to grow up free." She looked at Thomas. "That is what your father would have wanted. That is what all our dead would have wanted. We owe it to them to try." On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. Billions of humans who had spent their lives under the shadow of council oppression now danced in the streets. Children who had never known freedom ran and played without fear. Old men and women wept with joy, never believing they would live to see this day. Admiral returned home a hero. He walked through the streets of his childhood, now rebuilt after years of neglect under council rule. People reached out to touch him, to thank him, to simply see the man who had led them to victory. But did not feel like a hero. He felt tired, he felt old, and he felt the weight of all the souls who had died under his command. He found a quiet park and sat on a bench alone. The noise of celebration faded into the background. He closed his eyes and remembered faces. So many faces. Officers and soldiers and pilots and workers. All dead, all sacrificed for this victory. A young girl approached him. She could not have been more than 8 years old. She held a small flower in her hand. "Are you the Admiral?" she asked. Opened his eyes and smiled gently. "I am. My mommy said you saved us. She said you made us free." "Many people made us free. I just helped." The girl held out the flower. "This is for you. Thank you for making us free." Took the flower carefully. It was a simple thing. A daisy, white petals around a yellow center. But to him, it was the most precious gift he had ever received. "What is your name?" he asked. "Hope," the girl said. "My mommy named me Hope because she said someday things would be better, and now they are." She ran off to join her mother, leaving alone with the flower. He held it gently, looking at its simple beauty. Hope, that was what they had fought for, that was what they had died for, not revenge, not conquest. Hope, the hope that the future could be better than the past, the hope that their children would never know slavery. He stood and walked home, carrying the flower like a treasure. The years that followed were not easy. Building a new galactic order was harder than destroying the old one. There were disputes between species. There were old hatreds that did not fade quickly. There were those who wanted revenge for centuries of oppression. But slowly things improved. The Galactic Alliance established fair trade agreements that benefited all species. Former slaves received compensation for their suffering. Education and technology were shared freely. War became rare as species learned to resolve disputes through negotiation. Humans played a central role in this new galaxy, not as rulers or masters but as builders and peacekeepers. Their experience as surviving a harsh planet taught them to value cooperation and mutual support. Their experience as slaves taught them empathy for the oppressed. Became the first human ambassador to the Alliance. She worked tirelessly to bridge the gaps between species, to heal old wounds, to create a galaxy where everyone had a place. Thomas became a teacher. He traveled from world to world, sharing human stories with young beings of every species. He told them about Earth, about the suffering, about the rebellion, about the victory. But mostly he told them about hope. The commander who had once fought against humanity became an unlikely advocate for peace. He worked with human and to reform the military, teaching them to be protectors rather than conquerors. Many of his old comrades called him a traitor. He did not care. An admiral, he retired to a small house on Earth, near the mountains where he had once commanded the secret fleet. He spent his days gardening, reading, and receiving visitors from across the galaxy. Beings of every species came to see the legend, to ask his advice, to simply sit with him in peace. He kept the flower that hope had given him, pressed and preserved in a frame on his wall, a reminder of why they had fought, a reminder of what mattered. 10 years after the war ended, a ceremony was held on Prime. A monument was dedicated to all who had died in the conflict, council and rebel alike, oppressor and oppressed, all remembered together so that their deaths would not be forgotten. Spoke at the ceremony. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her voice was still strong. "We gather here to remember," she said, "not to celebrate victory but to mourn loss. Every being who died in this war was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Their deaths diminished us all." She looked out at the crowd, humans and dozens of other species, standing together in peace. The old galaxy was built on the lie that some species were better than others, that some beings deserved freedom while others deserved only chains. We know now that this lie was not just wrong, but dangerous. It led to suffering beyond measure. It led to war and death and hatred. She raised her hand toward the monument. "The new galaxy we are building must be different. It must be based on the truth that all intelligent beings are worthy of respect, that diversity is not a weakness but a strength, that we are better together than we ever were apart." She paused, her eyes glistening. "We who survived the war have a responsibility to build, to teach, to remember, to make sure that the galaxy never forgets what happened so that it never happens again. That is the legacy we must leave. That is the future we must create." The crowd was silent. Then slowly applause began. It spread through the assembly like a wave, beings of every species clapping together, former enemies standing side by side, the galaxy united as never before. In the front row, an old man watched with tears running down his face. Admiral James had insisted on attending despite his failing health. He wanted to see this. He needed to see this. Beside him sat little Hope, now a young woman of 18. She had become a diplomat herself, following in his footsteps. She held the old admiral's hand as the crowd cheered. "We did it," whispered. "We really did it." Hope squeezed his hand. "You did it, Admiral. You started something that changed everything." Shook his head slowly. "No, I just helped. Everyone did it together. That is the only way anything worth doing ever gets done." He looked up at the monument, at the names carved in stone, at the eternal flame burning at its peak. His friends were up there, his soldiers, his brothers and sisters in arms. "Rest now," he said quietly, speaking to the dead. "It is over. You are free. We are all free." The ceremony ended. The crowd dispersed. A new day began. Across the galaxy, beings of every species woke up to a universe full of possibility. Ships traveled between stars in peace. Children played without fear. The future stretched out like an endless road, waiting to be explored. Humanity had come a long way from that first terrible day when Council ships appeared in Earth's sky. From slaves to warriors to partners. From despised to respected. From hopeless to hopeful. They had proven that could be gentle, that the oppressed could forgive, that enemies could become friends. And they had proven something else, something that would echo through the ages. No matter how dark things become, no matter how impossible the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, there is always hope. There is always a chance to rise. There is always a chance to be free. The stars burned on in the endless night, as they had for billions of years, but now they seemed to shine a little brighter. Now they shone with the light of freedom. Now they shone with the fire of who had refused to be broken. And they would shine forever,